You're listening to Pete's Talkin' Music on IPL Radio. Interesting conversations and great music.
It certainly is an interesting conversation, and I just saw Lucy's face light up there. We'll just do a quick sound check because we are time limited here, so we've just called and connected. Are you there, Lucy?
Yeah, hi, Peter.
There we go. Okay, let's get into this. My guest today was raised on a small beef cattle farm and avocado farm in the Tablelands region of far north Queensland. But despite growing up on a farm, she left agriculture behind for 20 years to be a mining engineer in remote Western Australia. After a successful career as an engineer, she found her way back to her farming roots. Now, many of us love our morning cup of Joe, dirt, mud, Java, brew, jitter juice, wakey juice, liquid energy, rocket fuel, worm dirt. Now, of course, these are all slang names for that wonderful beverage, coffee. Lucy Stocker is now blazing a trail, creating a new industry in the southern Atherton Tablelands, offering the highest quality and most unique Australian-grown coffee on the market today. Lucy Stocker, thank you for joining us. I hope you've got a cup of the good stuff sitting in front of you right now.
Of course I do, Peter. One of my filter coffees.
Oh, that's great stuff. Look, can you, for all our listeners, can you tell me where you're speaking with us from today?
Okay. I'm on the veranda of my house at Upper Barron on the Atherton Tablelands. The coffee farm is just behind me. And, it's a beautiful day, which is not always the case up here.
Well, yeah, I imagine it's quite tropical. You get a lot of rain. Can you describe, I'm getting a sense of remoteness, but is that correct? How populated is the area up there?
Well, it's not fully remote. We're about 20 minutes from the closest town. We're actually on the top of an extinct volcano. So Mount Melander was its name, and it stopped erupting around 10,000 years ago. But it's beautiful up here, big, deep red basalt soils, but often shrouded in mist. We can end up with 2 to 3 metres of rainfall a year, but that's what you get in the mountains, and our coffee loves it.
So 2 to 3 metres of rain.
Yeah.
It sounds like Perth at the moment.
Yeah, well, it's just imagine the Perth sort of 300 days a year, and that's what you've got here.
Now, Lucy, you started life in that region, but then went down a career path in mining. Can you give me a potted history of your journey over the last, 20 or 30 years?
Yeah, sure. I was raised on a hill not too far from here, with, like you said at the start of the show, with coffee and cattle. Not coffee and cattle, avocados and cattle. And I just always liked the outdoors. Had fairly normal sort of upbringing, mum, dad, dog, sister. We spent a lot of time outside, and I think it was the adventure of mining was fairly attractive to me. I liked, the technical subjects I was doing at school. And, that's sort of I don't think I put in a whole lot of thought into my career other than something that was well-paying and outside.
So is the farm that you're on now the original farm you grew up on?
No, we're about 300 metres higher in altitude.
Yep.
We're further up the mountain. The old farm is only about 15 kilometres away, and it's an awesome downhill mountain bike ride. But my father bought this farm about 15 years ago after watching it for 50 years. So it was always on the mind of the family.
Oh, that's marvellous. So what was it like growing up on a farm in North Queensland? Was there much fun and mischief or accidents or?
All of that. My dominant memories are lots of mist and lots of mud. So nothing's changed in that regard. I guess, lots of people look back on their childhood rather fondly, and my sister and I certainly do. We spent loads of time just exploring the creeks in the rainforest and making up our own adventures. Just being dirty and outside. And so some things haven't changed.
That just sounds like a normal kid on a farm. That sounds absolutely marvellous. So you obviously did your schooling up that way and you finished school. What led you to get into a career in mining and as a mining engineer? And where did you study to do that?
Okay. Yeah, well, what led me to mining was probably, when I think back on it, my father had a bit of an interest in geology, even though he was a botanist, and he had some friends who were geologists. So that was sort of gave me a little bit of interest in sort of rocks and soil and things like that. But then I remember quite clearly being at the careers room at school, and I flipped over the page from geology, and I saw mining engineering, and it paid better. So I thought, oh well, that sounds pretty good to me. I started studying it at UQ in Brisbane, but I was probably partying a little bit too hard there, and dropped out after a year and went to Wollongong with a much more laid-back academic life in Wollongong, but also great exposure to the coalfields down there. So finished my degree down at Wollongong before moving over to the West for 20 years.
Yeah, tell me about the West. And that's where I guess a bit of disclosure here. That's where we know each other from, Western Australia, and working in the mining industry.
Yeah, look, fabulous 20 years in Western Australia. Just loved it. You know, if you could grow amazing coffee in Perth, I'd still be there. We to begin with, for the first part of my career, I was in the Pilbara, in all that red rocks and iron ore, then spent a bit of time in the gold fields, and towards the end of my career working more in international jobs, and particularly South Africa. So worked across a number of commodities, but West Australia will always hold a place in my heart, and some of my favourite my closest friends and the best colleagues I've ever had are still based in the West, so I like to get back there occasionally.
So, as a female in the mining industry, and 20 years ago, it was certainly a different space. What's your experience been? Well,
great. I've got nothing but I've had great experiences in the mining industry and in the ag sector now. I've never really. I didn't have the experience that some women have talked about with particular challenges working on the mines. I think when I look back, there's always been some people that you just did not enjoy working with, and that males and females across all sectors. So
I think that goes for any job, doesn't it?
Exactly. So, I think that the challenge, and raising two sons now, is, to rise above poor behaviour and call it out when you see it and get on with it. Be the best you can be. There will always be idiots around. Call them out and then, walk away.
So we'll unpack that a little bit more in just a moment. So you worked in technical engineering roles as a mining engineer, as well as in senior management roles. In recent times, the mining sector has come under a lot of scrutiny with activists hell-bent on stopping mining or significantly curtailing mining activities. Lucy, how do you see mining and its contribution to society and our standard of living and the sustainability of our standard of living in the future?
Well, it's absolutely essential. Without putting any sort of political spin on it, the materials that we need for a sustainable future generally come from mines. The lithium in our electric cars, the steel that goes into our windmills, the elements that go into our solar panels, all originate in mines. So, I think it's there's a responsibility that mining companies need to be very, very careful with to look after the land as best that they can. But for societies to continue to progress and for our standard of living and the standard of living of those billions of people, across our planet that want to live like us, mining's with us for the future. And so we have to do it well and sustainably.
I think that's well put, because the steel for our cars that we want to drive around in, or our bridges that we want to cross over, the copper for the electric cables that bring our power to all the appliances that we want to use. So a point well made there, Lucy. Some of the scrutiny also relates to sexual harassment and assault, and you sort of alluded to that. While it's a given that this behaviour is quite abhorrent, and you sort of generally mentioned that there are some people that you do and don't want to work with, and calling out behaviour. I guess, yes, the mining industry has had a lot of scrutiny, but from your experience and life experience, do you think the mining industry is any worse than any other?
No, certainly not from my experience. And look, it is just my experience. But, I have seen much worse behaviour in other sectors. I've talked to women in other sectors who have experienced much worse behaviour than I ever experienced. So, I don't see it as the sexual harassment problem as a mining specific issue. It's, there's a societal issue. And again, I just come back to people's personal responsibilities. You call that behaviour. When you see it, you stamp it out straight away and don't let it escalate.
Yes, that's well said. So 20 years in mining, and you moved from WA to North Queensland. Now, you've dragged your family along as well. How have they taken to that change? Because we'll talk more about the coffee growing and everything shortly, and after a bit of a music break. But let's just have a bit of a hint at moving and everything that happened there, because I remember when you did that and that transition, and we're thinking, whoa, that's a big move. Tell us how the family took it, and tell us a bit more about your family.
Oh, look, my family are just so easy to get along with. My husband's just the easiest man to get along with. He loves fishing. So I said, well, how about we move from Perth to the best fishing region in Australia? And he said, okay. My older son felt the same way, and my younger son just does what I say. So I was so lucky. Look, it probably sounds like I'm a bit sort of bossy, but which I am. But we did it as a family. We really, really wanted to experience life more. I was reasonably high up in a mining company before when I decided to leave, and I thought, how many boardroom tables can I sit around, just looking at PowerPoint presentations that have been, gone around the block so many times. They're so sanitized and boring. It was doing my head in, and I thought, call it a midlife crisis, or the opportunity to spend more time with my parents who were still up here at the time. The opportunity to spend more time with my husband and my sons. It was probably an intersection of all those things. But I just decided to jump and drag the family with me, and we don't regret a thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's time for a quick break now, and our first music break. Now, Lucy, with all of my guests, I've invited Lucy to pick a couple of special songs and tell us why. So what's your first choice for us today, please, Lucy?
Oh, look, this is, I could get accused of being a bogan playing this song, but the intro is just classic. It's Thin Lizzy's version of Whiskey in the Jar. And look, I've got no idea what the lyrics are saying. I'm not sure if it's devil worshipping or anything like that, but that intro just makes me feel so good. So that's one of my favourites.
Well, if you want to introduce it, and I've got it queued up here, and we'll take it away.
Beautiful. Let's go with Thin Lizzy's version of Whiskey in the Jar.
That certainly gets things going, doesn't it, Lucy?
That's right. Gets me going.
Now, I'm talking this morning with Lucy Stocker, mining engineer and now coffee grower from Crater Mountain Coffee. Lucy, engineers are thinkers and strategic people. Tell us about the thought processes and I guess more about the research that you did and that was behind your decision to head to North Queensland and become a coffee farmer.
Okay. Well, one, I love coffee. Two, I'd grown up in a region which I knew had grown coffee quite successfully at the end of the 1800s. I'd spent my childhood pretty much drinking coffee coming down from PNG that has very similar terroir to here. So high volcanic mountains, good deep basalt soil, always covered in mist. So I knew there was potential to make amazing coffee here. The thing that has stopped Australia being a great coffee producer is there's not many areas like this, and the cost of labour is so high here. You know, we pay the minimum wage of $27 an hour to anyone who works here on a casual basis, and you compare that to the most of the coffee growing regions, the coffee belt along the equator, or maybe a couple of bucks a day. So, there's it's very, very expensive to make coffee here. But with only 0.5% of coffees drunk in Australia actually being Australian coffee, I knew there would be a market if I could do something truly unique. So, it was a number of things that came together there.
So tell me more about the coffee you grow and what makes it special.
Okay. Yeah, well, the first thing is we have this wonderful terroir. We're way up on this mountain. We're over 1,000 metres high. We don't get a lot of strong sunlight because of all the mist. A lot of rainforest around. So it's the cool temps and the lots of cloud cover give us a really dense coffee seed. So, and that density of the coffee seed brings in a lot of flavour. And also the time to mature. So between when the coffee flowers to when I'm harvesting the fruit is 10 or 11 months. And a bit like, grapes that have been left on the vine for a long time, coffee seeds that are left on the tree a long time tend to have a more intense flavour. So I've got those things going on in the paddock. But what we're doing in the processing is probably at the really unique end for particularly for Australian coffee and even for world coffee.
Yeah, let's
is we're using we're using wine and champagne yeasts and specialist coffee yeasts and bacteria to ferment the sugars on our coffee seeds. So those different fermentation styles are bringing out really unique fruit flavours in our coffee. So, initially when I started out, I wanted to make Australia's best coffee. We're already there. Now I want to make the world's best coffee through this really careful fermentation styles.
And you do all of that on the farm yourself, do you?
Yep. So we take it right through from growing the coffee to processing processing itself is a number of steps in pulping out the seeds, fermenting, drying, hulling, and then finally I do the roasting and all the marketing. So as I said before, it's a very expensive way to grow coffee in Australia. So I've tried to keep hold of that full value stream of the coffee.
That's amazing. How many different types of coffee do you produce?
Well, we've got on the farm here, we've got about a dozen different types of coffee tree. So they're all subtypes of Arabica. So which, I think there's 120 or 130 different coffee varieties in the world. But the main varieties that are grown are Arabica and the one that's used for Robusta coffee, which mainly goes into instant. But within Arabica, there's all these different subtypes. So people might have heard of Caturra or Bourbon or Geisha as a very popular one at the moment. We've got about 12 of those different Arabica subtypes. The one I'm predominantly use is one that came out of Central America called Catuay Rojo. It's just a beautiful, dense little tree with lots of leaf cover, and all that leaf cover is feeding carbohydrates to those seeds, which is the coffee bean that we roast and consume. So, in the paddock, probably got about 12 different types, but my fermentation styles, we'll do 80 or 90 different experiments a year. That's a constant evolution going on at the processing shed there to work out what really makes our coffee sing.
If you're doing taste tests of all of these coffees, do you ever sleep?
Yeah. Now, I'm building up a bit of a tolerance, but look, I try and I taste test in the morning, so I'll roast the day before, and then so if I do say 5 or 6 roasts in a day, the next day I'll do my taste test on 5 or 6 of those coffees. Yeah. But I might only be having a few mil of each to do my quality control. So when I do the taste testing at night, I'm in real trouble, and I've done that before.
Is coffee taste testing a bit like the wine connoisseur taste testing, where you taste it and sort of swirl it around your mouth and everything, and then spit it out, or do you and thereby does that nullify some of the effect of the caffeine, or does it make no difference at all, and you just
depends how good it is. Look, there is very well-defined cupping protocols with so many grams of coffee to so many grams of water and what temperatures you taste it, and then you swirl it in your mouth and spit it out. Look, when I'm doing it by myself on the farm here, I'll often throw it back, because I really do like the taste and the feeling of my coffee on the back of my throat. I find it really sweet and enjoyable. If I'm cupping coffee from elsewhere and it's got that sort of harsh bitterness, I may not swallow it. But there's protocols there like wine to stop us having heart attacks.
Now, Lucy, you recently had a major moment from all of your hard work, and Crater Mountain Coffee hit the world stage at the World of Coffee in Milan. What is the World of Coffee, and tell us more about that?
Well, I'm still coming to grips with it, but you can really go down the coffee rabbit hole. So there's all these world championships of different ways of preparing coffee. So there's, the one that you may be more familiar with is the latte art. So each region in a country will compete to find the best latte artist, and then that region will go together for national titles, and the winner of the nationals will go to the world championships. Yep. So Milan was holding the world championships for latte art, and for a category called coffee and good spirits. Now, why I particularly like this one, this is your coffee cocktails. And so you have to make a sort of a standard sort of Irish coffee, a hot cocktail, and then a cold cocktail. Now, I found out as one of the competitors was leaving Australia that he'd actually chosen our coffee to make his coffee cocktails with. So
fantastic.
He used Crater Mountain coffee in his cocktails. Now, he came 5th in the world using our coffee, and no doubt a lot of his talent in making it. Uh-huh. But we were absolutely chuffed with that, and we're working with some of his colleagues to improve our coffee even more, getting access to very special yeasts and fermentation protocols to get some more world championship level coffee. So the next Milan was where they did the last lot of world champs in September. there's going to be some more World Championship events in Melbourne, and we'll be going down to that later on next month.
Fantastic. Now, Lucy, I've had the opportunity to taste your coffee, and it is truly amazing. It is the Rolls Royce of coffee, and it is marvellous. If someone listening today would like to purchase some of Crater Mountain Coffee, how do we get hold of it, please?
All right. Look, skip the middleman, go straight on to cratermountain.com.au. I do 90% of my sales straight through the website.
So it's all online.
It's all online. I roast 2 or 3 times a week and always dispatching fresh coffee. So coffee's at its prime drinking about 1 to 2 weeks after roasting, so people get it beautiful and fresh, and can make it however they like.
That sounds marvellous. So a Crater Mountain Coffee
.com.au. Just cratermountain.com.au.
Lucy, you've had an amazing journey and one of great variety. Now, unfortunately, we have a hard stop here today in about 1 minute, and so we do have to keep going. It has been wonderful to catch up with you today and talk about the past, the present, and the future. Good luck with Crater Mountain Coffee. Now, to take us out with our chat today, I'll get you to quickly introduce another song, and thanks for being part of the show today.